Welcome to the video series on Excel Chapter 2, Formulas, Functions, and Formatting. Check your ebook. This chapter, we're going to be learning different ways or different methods to insert formulas, and at least 5 different ways that you can insert functions. The worksheet we're about to complete is called the Hypermass Online Storage Salary Report, and it kind of looks like this. This is what we're trying to complete. It's going to look like this when we're done. Now I've saved you the trouble of typing in some of the data, and if you go to the course page and click on Hypermass Online Storage Salary Report, you'll find the worksheet looking more like this. This is the one we want to work on. Don't forget to enable the editing, because we're going to head straight to inserting the formulas. We want to insert formulas for gross pay, federal tax, state tax, tax percent, net pay, a few totals in row 13, and the max, min, and average functions in the lower part of the worksheet. So in the ebook, if you locate page EX73, you'll find that there are listing all the formulas on this page that need to be inserted into this worksheet. Now let's begin with gross pay. Gross pay is equal to hours worked times hourly pay rate. Now for Excel, in order for the software to recognize that you're inserting a formula, you need to insert or type in the equal sign. As soon as you type the equal sign, Excel knows, okay, formula time. So this formula says hours worked times hourly pay rate. Now method number 1 in terms of entering formulas is to simply type it all in. So hours worked is in cell C4, so it's equal C4, and in terms of the arithmetic operator, the asterisk represents our multiplication symbol, so that's times. Hourly pay rate is in cell D4, so our formula should now read equal C4 times D4, equal C4 times D4. Hit enter, and the resulting value, 1,178.775. Let's calculate the federal tax. Federal tax is equal to 0.22 times the gross pay minus dependents times 24.32. It's a little longer, so here goes. Equal 0.22, put the asterisk for multiplication, but this time open the bracket, because included in this bracket will be gross pay minus dependents times 24.32. Now unlike typing it all in, you can use your mouse and click in the cell that you need. So gross pay is in cell E4, so I click on it and it joins my formula. I have to put my minus sign here, which is the dash. Dependents, which is in cell B4, and those two are multiplied by 24.32, and close the bracket, and the whole formula should now say equals 0.22 times open bracket E4 minus B4 times 24.32 close bracket, and the resulting value is 243,279. And if you have an extra place, then that's okay. Let's calculate the state tax. The state tax is equal to 0.04, and it's supposed to be multiplied by the gross pay. Now, unlike using the mouse to click in the cell, you can actually use the arrow key to go across and select a cell. So use your left arrow key and go across to gross pay. So the formula now reads equals 0.04 times E4, and the resulting value 47.151. Now for the other two, tax percent and net pay, it doesn't matter which method you choose, whether you want to type it in, whether you want to click, whether you want to use your arrow keys, you're free to do any one of the above methods. But the formula for the tax percent goes something like this: equal the federal tax plus the state tax divided by gross pay. Now federal tax plus state tax will be in brackets, so open bracket, whatever the federal tax is, and I'm clicking F4, adding it to the state tax, which is G4. I'm closing the bracket because both have to be divided by, and the division symbol here is the forward slash, divided by gross pay, which is in E4. So the formula in total is equal, open bracket, F4 plus G4, close the bracket, forward slash for divide, E4. And that's calculating the tax percent. And the resulting value is 0.2638. And you might have an additional decimal place, which I believe is a 3. Finally, the net pay is calculated like this, equal gross pay, which is E4, minus, and I'm going to open a bracket, federal tax plus state tax. So the federal tax is in cell F4. I'm adding to it the state tax, which is G4, and I'm closing the bracket. So the formula now reads equal E4 minus, open bracket, F4 plus G4. And the resulting value is 888.3447. Now, we could have filled in the rest of the formulas using individual fill handles, but let's save us some time. Highlight E4 to I4, and using the single fill handle, copy the formulas for the respective columns down. Now for the total row, we need to calculate totals for the hourly pay rate, as well as the gross pay, the federal tax, the state tax, the tax percent, and the net pay. I think we're skipping one, but you'll see. Here goes. We're going to do all of them in one go. Here are the ones we need a total for. Hours worked, which is C13. We want the total for the hours worked, as well as hold down the control key. After selecting C13, hold the control key, go across to E, F, and G13. Still holding control, skip H and go to I13. And using the auto sum button, you're going to generate totals for those. Why did we skip H? We're actually going back to H. We're going back to H. Now, we could not have done this earlier because these cells were empty. What are we doing? We're copying the formula from H12 down to H13. And you're going to get a little error there. You see a little green tag in the top left corner of the cell? It's an error message. It's an inconsistent formula. If you put your mouse over, it says the formula in this cell differs from the formulas in this area of the worksheet, and that is actually true. Because if you check the others, those are auto-sum, and this one does not have auto-sum. To turn off the error message, you can go to ignore error, because we know that this was our intention. We're now going to head down to calculating some functions. Now, a function in Excel is a pre-written formula, and we're going to determine the average, the max, and the min. There are 5 functions, 5 methods to insert functions, 5 methods to insert functions, 3 of which are going to be shown here, and I'll describe the other 2. So we want to calculate the highest value, and to do so, we're going to go to the insert function box, or button. Remember, we're calculating the highest for the dependent, so your active cell should be B14. Go to the insert function button, and in the most recently used list, you should have max. I'm going to click on OK. The software is assuming that you want to calculate the max of B4 to B13, but in fact, we're actually stopping at B12, so you can remove the 3 from here and put a 2 instead. Or, if you didn't want to do all of that, say I deleted this, and it's notice in the cell, it's waiting, it's kind of empty. You can collapse this window, select the cells you want, B4 to B12. Expand the window again and see what the resulting value should be. So it's picking up the numbers to be used and the resulting value. So let's click on OK, and the highest value should be 4. Let's look at method number 2. Here's another way. If you go up to the AutoSum button and use the arrow that's sitting beside it, the arrow beside the AutoSum button, do you see list of functions? Min is in the list. We're going to click on min. Now min shows up in the cell B15, but it's doing something a little different from what you saw earlier in the first method. It's assuming that you want to calculate the min for the cell right above it, B14. But as it is sitting right here, right now, you can instead go and select B4 to B12, and it joins the formula instead, and hit enter, and the resulting value is 0. How about method number 3? Here's another method. We're going to type in this cell B16, equal AV, and you type equal AV, it's going to bring up a list, and this list is called the formula autocomplete list. Because you type the beginning letters of a particular function, it brings up those functions beginning with those letters, and average is in the list. So we're going to double click average in the list, and now it's waiting for what? The range of cells, or arguments as the book calls it. So I'm going to highlight B4 to B12 and hit enter, and the resulting value is 2. Now these three, B14, 15 and 16, we're going to copy the functions across to the other cells, stopping at column I. So selecting B14, 15 and 16 and using the single fill handle, drag that across to copy the functions you just included over to column I, release your mouse button. With the exception of one, we're going to be deleting whatever is sitting in H16. Whatever is in H16, you're going to delete it. Here's the reason. The average of a percentage is mathematically invalid, meaning it doesn't make sense to have one. So we're going to delete that value. Okay. We're pretty much complete in terms of the formulas and the functions, but we do have to do some formatting. But before we get there, we're going to pause here just to talk about what the range finder is. Range finder. Somewhere on page EX89 in the book you'll find some information about this. One of the more common mistakes made with Excel is to include an incorrect reference in a formula. An easy way to verify that a formula references the cells you want is to use range finder. So what you're doing, you're pretty much checking the cells to see if the cells that you're referencing are the right ones. And to use it, double click in any cell that contains a formula. So I'm double clicking here in E4, and I'm seeing the color coding of the cells that I'm using in my formula. Try another one, and you see the color code again, and the entire formula shows up there, and if you had made a mistake, you are free to fix it. So that's range finder. Now let's format this worksheet. The first thing we're going to do is change the theme. Then we're going to do some merging and centering of the title and the subtitle, applying some cell styles, applying some dollar signs and comma styles and percent styles, and then we'll do some more formatting. So let's start with the themes. Somewhere on the page layout tab is the themes button, and they said to choose basis. If you don't have basis, facet may be the closest thing because we're looking for the green color scheme, but basis. Now after doing that, and back to the home tab because we're going to use the merge and center button now. Select A1 to J1, click the merge and center button, and similarly A2 to J2, merge and center. For both A1 and A2, you're going to use the cell style called title. Now, with the exception that the value, or the title, the subtitle, sorry, salary report, is going to be a little smaller. So click salary report in A2 and use the decrease font size button once, and it makes it just a little smaller. Now select again A1 and A2, and we're going to fill the background with this green color called Green Accent 1 Lighter 60%. Green Accent 1 Lighter 60%. While it's still selected, we're going to apply a border, to the background, and this border is called Thick Box Border. Thick Box Border. Here is the Borders button, and you're going to click on Thick Box Border, and surrounding the cells is this thick line. Let's go on to the other items. A3 to J3, using the cell style called Heading 3. That's what you're going to apply. A3 to J3, cell style of Heading 3. In the total row, A13 to J13, you're going to apply a cell style called Total. Now, the next section allows us to format the worksheet's numbers. Right? The numbers need some formatting. We're going to apply $signs to some sets of numbers, and comma style to other sets, and a percent style to column H. Now there are two different $signs, and you'll notice the difference as soon as you apply them. One is called the fixed $sign, and the dollar symbol is sitting to the far left in that cell. The other $sign is called a floating $sign, and this one, the dollar symbol is sitting right beside the figure. So you will see. Here we're going to apply $signs to the following numbers. Select D4 to G4, hold the control key, click on I4, still holding control, go down to E13 to G13 and click on I13, so you're skipping column H. Using the accounting number format button, you're going to apply the dollar symbol. Notice that the $sign is sitting to the far left of the cell. These figures, D5 to H12, D5 to G12, because we're skipping H, D5 to G12, hold the control key and select I5 to I12, those are getting the comma style. Also getting the comma style is C4 to C16, comma style for that as well. While we're at it, the dependents in column B, B4 to B16, they would read better if they're centered, so use the center button and align those. Now what about the other $sign? So you know that you press you click on the accounting number format button to get the fixed $sign. See the space between the symbol and the figures, and the dollar symbol is sitting to the far left of the cell. The other kind of dollar symbol we're going to apply down here. Select D14 to G16, skip H, hold the control key, go to I14 to I16. So it's D14 to G16, holding control to go over and select I14 to I16. Then the easiest way to get a floating $sign is if you go up to General. This says General in the number group, and you click on Currency, it will give you the floating $sign. Notice the dollar symbol is sitting right beside the digit, no spaces between. The other way to apply that is the longer way. You can go to the number group, click the dialog box launcher, go to the currency category, And in terms of negatives, you can specify which one you prefer. Here's the one in brackets. Once you click OK, you will get a floating $sign. The column with the percentages, we're going to apply the percent start of the years. Select H4 down to H15, and remember H16 is blank because we didn't need a figure in there. And go to the percent style, and yes, it puts on the percent symbol, but we actually do want 2 decimal places. So we're going to click the increase decimal button twice to apply 2 decimal places to it. The last thing to edit, the last 2 things to edit are these A14, 15, and 16 that contain the labels highest, lowest, and average. You can bold those, and then we're going to come back and look at the dates. The higher date, notice the format of the date. It has 4 digits in the year. We want 2 digits in the year instead. So we're going to select J4 to J12, going to the dialog box launcher for the number group, and it picks up the different date formats or date types, and we want to choose the 4th one down on the list, and we're going to click on OK, and it should convert the years from 4 digits to 2 digits. Hope you've been saving what you have as you go along. Now, somewhere on page EX100, we're going to address this section called conditional formatting. Now, this next step is to emphasize the values greater than 70 in column C by formatting them to appear with an orange background and white font. Meaning, any value from C4 to C12 that is greater than 70, we want the Excel software to apply an orange background with white font. And this is the condition that we want to set up. So here's the conditional formatting button. After you select C4 to C12, click on the conditional formatting button, go down to New Rule, and the second option, format only cells that contain. If you click around, you'll see that the boxes change depending on which option that you choose. So we're looking at format only cells that contain. So in the lower part of the window is where we apply this rule. And remember the rule, these values from C4 to C12, if they are greater than 70, we want an orange background with white text. So here's the rule, format only cells with, and we leave cell value here, but you can look at the other options. But not between, but greater than. And greater than what? 70. So we type 70. So that's part of the rule. The software should check to see if the values from C4 to C12 are greater than 70. But what should the software do after it finds that values are greater than 70? We want to format, here's the format button, the settings so that the font becomes, here's the color section, white font. So where it says color, choose white. And the fill, which is the background, becomes orange. Not sure if this is orange, but I'm going to pick one of these. And when you click on OK, the preview should show what the resulting feature will come up, how the cell is supposed to look. So when you click on OK, those values that meet the condition, which are here 81.50, 71.25, and 80, met the condition because they are greater than 70. They got a orange or brown background with a white font instead. Why did 70 not meet the condition? Because we didn't say greater than or equal to. We said greater than. So anything higher than 70 got the formatting done. So that's conditional formatting. Coming down to the end, we're going to adjust the width of columns and the height of rows. The width of columns and height of rows. There is this thing called best fit. And if you select, for example, let's do it to A and B. So you're going up to column A and look at the little black arrow there, or column A and B. If you double click the boundary that separates the columns, you would have been using the best fit feature. What is that? The software is going to automatically increase or decrease the width of the cell to the widest item. So simply double clicking, the software will automatically adjust. But sometimes you may want to follow specific measurements in terms of adjusting columns. So for example, C, D, and H, and you have to hold the control to get to H. So select column C, D, hold the control key and go across to H. We want those columns to have a specific measurement in terms of the width. So if you press it, and it doesn't matter where you put it in terms of on either C, D, or H, it's going to affect all of them. So here I am at between D and E. And you're watching the screen tip. You're looking on the screen, you see width and pixels. You want this, or these columns, C, D, and H, to have a column width that is matching the following measurements: 7.50 or 65 pixels. Now it's a little tedious, but the measurements should be there. I'm not getting mine. Okay, so once you get it, release the mouse button at 7.50 or 65 pixels. Similarly, for columns E, F, and I, E, F, and hold control and go to I, you're going to follow the screen tip so that it says 10.50 or 89 pixels. 10.50 or 89 pixels. Once you get it, release the mouse button. And we did no adjustments to G, H, or J. Well, we can adjust the row, and we're doing adjustments to row 3 and row 14. So similarly, you can point between row 3 and row 4, and you're following a screen tip, and you're making this wider actually. Follow it so that it says 48.00 or 64 pixels. 48.00 or 64 pixels. And then go down to row 14, so pointing between 14 and 15, the screen tip should say 27.00 or 36 pixels, and then release the mouse button. Of course, the reason for these is I believe they want a visual space between the headings and the titles, the titles here. Okay, one final adjustment. I realized that we missed something. A3 to J3, those should actually be centered. So we can do it now. A3 to J3, center those. Now, unlike the Word software that flags down all your errors, Excel does not. And so to check your spelling, you can go to the Review tab, go to the Spelling button, and it's going to check for you. Now, in this case, I'm going to ignore Hypermask because that is the name. And the name of the employees, I'll have to ignore all of those. But once it finds no errors, we can move on. What if we need to print this worksheet? Let's go to File, let's go to Print. And my settings are set in such a way that my page is set to landscape, which gives more. If you look at portrait, it's going to split the page in two, and you get 2 pages coming out the printer. So I've set mine to landscape instead. Now, even if after you set it to landscape and your worksheet still spreads across 2 more pages, there's a way to make some adjustments to that too. So if you go to Page Setup, you have an option that says Fit To, and it has 1 page wide by 1 page tall. When you select that, it should adjust the spreadsheet so that it fits on 1 sheet of paper. And you're free to actually change the type of paper too. Maybe you want more space and you prefer a legal paper instead of letter paper. You can also actually print, let's go back to page setup, the sheet tab. You can print grid lines and row and column headings if you wanted to. But of course, they might be distracting to some, so I'm going to take those off and return to the worksheet. Now, what if you wanted to print just a selection of the worksheet? So if I highlight only a portion and I go to File and Print, and I indicate Print Selection, just that piece should come out for my printing purposes. Now just a little bit about columns, the heights and the rows. You can actually hide a column or hide a row. Now if I drag, let's say column G's width down to 0, I would have hidden the column. How would I know? How would you know? Apart from looking and seeing E, F, and then H, that there's no G. But look closer and you'll see that the boundary that separates F and H is split. And if I go ahead and widen it, I'll get back my column G. There's another way to do this. Right click on the column, go to hide, and similarly position your mouse just where that split arrow is. Right click again and go to unhide. So you can hide a column or hide a row. Finally, displaying and printing the formula version of the worksheet. Did you know that all along you've been working with the values version of the worksheet? Look at page EX115 for more information on this. Values version. It's pretty much showing the results of the formulas you've entered rather than the actual formulas. But you can actually display the formulas version of the worksheet. Look at your keyboard. Just above the tab key, there is an accent mark key. And to toggle your worksheet from the values version to the formulas version, all you need to do is press Control and the accent mark. And when you do that, your worksheet will show all the formulas that you've entered. And this version of the worksheet is good for what's called debugging. What's debugging? Process of finding and correcting errors in the worksheet. And you can actually view and print this version if you wanted to. So how do I switch back to the other one? Control and the accent mark. Let's switch it back. Now, if you can't remember that, you can go to the Formulas tab, and there's the Show Formulas button. You see it? Formula Auditing, Show Formulas. And if you click it again, it will turn the formulas on and off. As in, switch between the formulas version and the values version. You have come to the end of this worksheet, the Hypermass Online Storage Salary Report worksheet. And for further information, please check your book, Excel Chapter 2, and feel free to recreate this worksheet. Thank you for viewing.